unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This episode is brought to you by White Cloud Coffee Roasters, where every bean tells a story of adventure. Visit whitecloudcoffee.com and use the code CREATIVITY.
Welcome back, friends, to our podcast, Your World of Creativity, where we explore how creative professionals around the world bring ideas to life. And we talk about inspiration and implementation. And today we're going to dive deep into the high-stakes, high-impact world of healthcare branding. And my guest is Joe Daley, the president of Addison Whitney. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. It is an absolute blast to be here with you.
And it's a blast to circle back around and reconnect with you. Joe has been a longtime industry friend, colleague, boss, collaborator. What else could we have done together, Joe?
I think we covered a lot of bases.
I think we did. And Joe, as the head of Addison Whitney, is really leading in brand strategy, identity, naming, mainly in pharmaceutical and healthcare, but so many technology sectors around the way. And this award-winning idea, as I was reading on your website, Joe, Addison Whitney is behind like half of the top 200 prescription drug names in the market today. That's impressive.
Yes, the work that is done to name a pharmaceutical product entails creativity. It entails marketing research. It entails submitting and completing all of the regulatory documents. There's a few phases to it. And yes, indeed, we have touched almost half of the top 200 products in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Considering that creative process, your journey personally often reflects some of that journey. Pharmaceutical sales, global branding, agency work, and the real full spectrum of healthcare marketing. How did that experience shape the way you approach leadership now at Addison Whitney?
I've had the benefit of a really broad experience base, all completely unintentional, by the way. I started as a sales rep in the field and did that for a couple of years. And then I went into marketing with what today is Bristol Myers Squibb. Great organization. And I was able to learn the fundamentals, the basics. I went from marketing products within BMS to then working into the future, working on their franchise, their what they called portfolio management at the time in their metabolic therapeutic area. So I got a chance to go from marketing into business strategy and planning and new product acquisition. And then took all of that practical experience and brought it over to the agency world, where at some point I met you, Mark, and really concentrated my focus on marketing planning, brand planning, creative expression, which is where my true interests and passions exist, and have followed that ever since, to ultimately running a couple of the agencies within the network that I currently am inside of, and presently president of Addison Whitney, as you point out.
Terrific. I think as people look at naming a drug, quite a peculiar process, quite a specialized process. And if people have ever named a product or a company and they thought, we all just got in a room and we brainstormed for a little while and we came up with that. But of course, now we watch every commercial on TV has an interesting name and they go, where did they come up with that name? Maybe you could back us up a little bit, walk us through what that naming might entail, why it's so unique. And then I guess what comes out the other end, what makes that a success?
It's definitely not naming a soft drink or a car or something in the consumer space. When we're in the healthcare space, it's highly regulated and for good reason. Most importantly, to protect patient safety. And when you're naming a pharmaceutical product, there are three key stakeholders at the table that you must satisfy. Certainly the marketing stakeholder, but there's also the regulatory stakeholder where you have to satisfy standards that we refer to as look like and sound like other existing products in the marketplace, such that we avoid the possible error that can be made if a new product does in fact sound or look like another product that's already in the marketplace. There are standards that you have to satisfy in the regulatory space. And then ever present is also trademark. You have to have availability. And all three of those stakeholders need to be satisfied in that process. And that's what makes it particularly challenging.
Yes. And that's why so many people look at the names and go, either A, that doesn't make much sense, or B, isn't that a cool spelling, or lots of X's, lots of Y's and Z's and so forth. But
Yeah.
does that come in meeting those three different stakeholder needs?
Yeah, because you have today, I think, let's just say over 35,000 approved prescription products marketed around the world. And as you can imagine, with that many that already exist, and with each new approved product, trying to find the next product that doesn't sound like something or look like something or is available from a trademark perspective is becoming increasingly more and more difficult. So what ends up happening is that when you start the creative process for a name, of course, you always hold the brand and the brand strategy up aspirationally as the end game. You're trying to create a name that serves the brand. As you go through the process, it's a process of attrition. You create a lot of names, and as you go along, many of those names fall out. And they fall out because of these regulatory and trademark constraints that I'm talking about. And a real problem is occurring now because the availability is getting scarce. So the attrition rates are very high. And as you create names, you end up at some point, many times you're chasing letter strings. You're trying to find a combination of letters that satisfy the regulatory and trademark constraints, and you start to lose your strategic compass so that you end up with a name that can get approved at the end of the day. And that's why you do have a lot of funny looking pharmaceutical names that string letters together that are unusual. They tend to be hard to pronounce. Many times they're hard to write. And yeah, you look at those, and if you don't appreciate the process, you go, why in the world did they come up with that name?
Yes. And I guess thinking on the creative side of that, you mentioned the team ideating all the potential names, navigating this regulatory and trademark, and in our digital world, even trying to get the URL or whatever.
Yes.
And I guess maintaining the creative excitement and motivation and pursuit of a great name, it must be really difficult to keep that team motivated.
It can be. You always start, as I said, with trying to serve the aspiration of creating a great brand. And a name is foundational to a great brand. A name should be a very strong voice in the story that a brand is telling. And you want to land as close as you can to that aspiration in finding a name. What we have found is that the process I'll say the traditional process that's followed for naming that most agencies use and has been in place for well over 3 decades now, just isn't as effective as it once was. It isn't as productive as it once was because of the attrition that I was talking about. So about 2 or 3 years ago, we started to reimagine the process for naming. And the culmination of that, the work we've been doing, is the creation of an AI-based brand design tool that we call ARI that is intended to address this problem of attrition that I'm speaking to you about now and to keep strategy at the forefront of designing a pharmaceutical name. We've been in market with ARI now for about 6 months. And to your question about keeping teams motivated, fired up, ARI is doing a great job of keeping everybody on the team focused on that aspiration I talked about, which is to find a name that's on point strategically, that's a strong voice in a brand's story, while satisfying regulatory and trademark constraints at the same time. It's been a real advance for us in working with our clients.
And how do you feel it amplifies rather than replaces? Everybody says, oh, it's going to replace us.
Yeah.
Whether it's our
Yes.
copywriters, our designers, and in your case, the verbal naming team is sitting on the edge of their seats going, oh, great, AI, here it comes. But
Yes.
you're
So,
saying it could actually fan the flame of creativity,
yes.
perhaps.
Yes. I say all the time, absent human innovation and curiosity, you're not going to get magic out of AI. You just aren't. AI is an amplification. It really enables, in fact, just this morning, we were working on a project. It enables our creative team to exhaust the possibilities that exist in a particular strategic space in a way that they never could before. It allows them to focus on creativity and not be distracted by the other compliance necessities in the regulatory and trademark space. It actually unlocks their creativity. Doesn't replace anything, actually. It just enables them to focus their attention on where their exquisite talents lie, which is in their ingenuity and creativity.
Yes. And we've been talking mainly about the product naming, but I was curious about your observations and maybe trends in other areas. I'll say clinical trial naming, med tech technology, the medical software
Yes,
technology. You guys are involved in all of that, right?
we are. And just to back up for a moment to focus in on what we believe and I believe is a very strong trend in branding. And that is, and this is in particular in the healthcare space, that the effort to brand your work, I'll say, your innovation, should and is starting earlier in the process than it ever has before. And that does include clinical trial branding and making an effort to distinguish your efforts in a particular clinical space so that you are attracting the key opinion leaders, the centers of excellence, and the patients you need involved. And you're doing so at a greater pace so that the innovation that you're trying to bring forth to help patients in need get to the marketplace faster. Brand is a powerful tool in making that happen. In fact, it's been shown that a well-branded trial can recruit at 3 to 5 times the pace of a trial that's not branded. So to your point, a tool like ARI, yes, we are using it in clinical trial branding. We are using it to brand medical and med tech devices. We are using it to brand software that's directed at healthcare. We're using it to brand corporations and corporate branding. So it's being used universally across all the work that we're doing.
It's exciting. And I was thinking about when you talked about the network, and this goes back to a lot of experiences you and I have been able to share over the years, but the global collaboration that it takes, not
Yes.
only from a team and a network standpoint, but when you were mentioning trademark or regulatory, it's a smaller and smaller world. It was always important, but now do you find it to be even more critical?
You're setting me up, Mark. You are, because the project I mentioned earlier that we were working on this morning, the very specific aspect of the project was actually coming up with the derivation of a name that would work in Arabic. And it was tricky. With the use of ARI, we were able to develop, I would say, 150 plus options to solve the problem that we were looking to solve in less than 20 minutes.
Wow.
Less than 20 minutes. Validated linguistically in Arabic. That same problem would have taken us 2 weeks to 4 weeks to solve before.
Sure.
Extraordinary. So the tool that I'm talking about, to just give you a little bit of context for it, isn't just a name generation tool. It's not an off-the-shelf AI stack that we apply to an old process. This is an application, custom application that we built, as I said, really 2 years in the process of development. And we've been beta testing it for, I don't know, probably 6, 8 months before we took it out to the marketplace. And this tool has embedded inside of it the screening tools that are necessary in the pharmaceutical naming space. So it has the regulatory tools. It's called POCA, or it's a lookalike, sound-alike database. It has Markify, which is a trademark database. It has linguistics and linguistic capabilities. And all of those capabilities are operating in real time as our teams are working on the creative, the actual name, the invented name. The screens are happening in real time. So it's so empowering to them, to your earlier point. It doesn't replace anything. It amplifies their capabilities, and it does so on a global scale.
So exciting. Joe, this is probably a good point for me to pause and make sure people know how to connect with you, connect with Addison Whitney. I want to think about the future, but I better land on the present.
Through all the usual means.
Yeah.
But the easiest thing to do is to go to the Addison Whitney website. That's a simple thing to find. And the beauty there is you'll also find links to ARI, and you'll find use case examples that give you a practical read on whether something like this does or doesn't make sense for you and your situation. You can also reach out to me directly at joe.daley, DALEY, at Syneos, SYNEOS health.com. I'm more than happy to respond directly and share with you the really cool things that we're doing in this space.
Yeah, that's terrific. I noticed on the website that I'll call it a demo. How do you demo something like this? How do you look under the hood and say,
you're making me smile, because it's a proof point in that AI is being hung on everything these days.
That's
right. Everything's AI. The fact that we can demo ARI is a proof point that it is a piece of software. So how do you demo it? You literally jump into the program with us. And we actually encourage our pharmaceutical partners to bring their ideas into those demos for any particular asset that they're working on. What are you thinking about? What's strategically important to you? The thing that most discover immediately when they're demoing the product is the remarkable amount of strategic information that can be loaded into ARI on the front end. You are a expert market researcher yourself, and you understand the range and depth of information and insight that can be gathered. All of that can be front loaded into ARI, which allows us to explore an extraordinary amount of territory. And we can demonstrate that very directly. When individuals bring that information into the demo session, they can see how applying that information on the front end how the application of that information on the front end drives strong strategic naming options on the back end.
Yeah. Very cool.
So it's simple. It's actually quite simple to demo.
Yeah, it sounds cool. I guess I'm thinking about the future now as the organization leader and as a strategist yourself. And if this took a couple of years at least to build,
yes,
you have to be looking over the horizon. What are you periscoping out to think about these days, Joe?
ARI is built, and by the way, I'll just step back for a second and say, where's the name ARI come from, since we're talking about names?
Yes.
ARI, ARI. Yes, there is a logical link and inspiration that comes from Aristotle, but it's also the fun point that reason, ARI is reason embedded inside of AI, ARI.
I like that.
That's where the name comes from. And ARI is built, as I said, a brand design application. Right now, we're using it as customized for naming. What's the future? We are already adding modules to ARI that enable us to do further work with other brand assets. Things like positioning, brand character, brand story. Really anything that allows us to consolidate a great range of data and information and refine that into thought is something that ultimately, in some way, shape, or form, can be done through this platform. So while it took a couple of years to design it and get the first customized module for naming up and running, we're already modifying it to do more.
It's an exciting time in the space, not only with all the healthcare innovation, but with a lot of this creativity innovation as well. And I guess I'm thinking now to the listeners of the podcast, Joe, who might be, early in their creative careers.
Yes.
They're just entering this, and maybe specifically in healthcare, or maybe they're in some other brand storytelling space. And we want to say, take a look at healthcare. It's more creative than you think. What insights, not only from your experience, but the work that you're doing now, what insights, I'll call it advice, but lack of a better word, would you have for these creatives in the early stages of their career?
This is going to sound like advice that would apply at any time. It's just that the tools are different. Learn the tools. And the thing that is so incredible about the moment that we're in is the range of what's available to you as a creative, your ability to get your ideas and your thoughts out into the real world for others to experience has never been more tangible. I used to say in the past, but I think it's even more true today. It's never been a better time to be a big idea. Never been a better time to be a big idea, because you as an individual have so many opportunities to express yourself. That's all this is, Mark. It's all this is, the ability to unlock expression. It's nothing to be intimidated by here. So I say lean into it. Learn the modern toolkit and stay with it, because the tools are rapidly changing with each passing month, really. So I would say have a blast, learn the tools, and excite yourself with the possibilities that you can realize.
Yeah, for sure. Joe, thanks for sharing all these great stories and insights. It was great to connect with you again. And then some of the fun, and listeners, you'll enjoy this too. When you go to the website, Addison Whitney, and read some of the cases and the stories behind the names, what did this name, was it meant to imply, or what are some of the connotations you go, oh, now I get it.
It's like a puzzle. I get it.
Oh, Zempic. It's not just a jingle anymore. It's a great name.
Yes,
So
it is.
it's good stuff. Thanks, Joe, for
Thank you,
sharing
Mark.
the insights. I really appreciate it. And
Had a blast.
be sure to connect with you. And listeners, thanks as always for coming by. We want to thank our sponsor, White Cloud Coffee Roasters. You can get 10% off of your order from White Cloud when you use the promo code CREATIVITY at checkout. Go to whitecloudcoffee.com. Joe, there had to be coffee involved in the conversation, so it's not going to surprise you that you talk about leaning in. I'm leaning into that coffee right now.
Yes.
And so thanks for coming by. Now be sure to subscribe to Your World of Creativity on your favorite podcast app, and rate and review and subscribe. And then come back again. We'll continue unlocking your world of creativity. I'm Mark Stinson, and we'll see you next time.